And welcome to Quoth the Raven, Louis Brer Raven, for June 25th, 2020. Our topic this evening will be cancel culture and some other topics as well. Mm-hmm. But our primary topic will be the cancel culture and what's been going on in the industry with the calling out of individuals for various inappropriate behaviors over the years. Before we do that, however, we need to go through our normal beginnings, and that is in accordance to the COPPA regulations that began at the beginning of the year. This episode of Quoth the Raven is intended for ages 16 and up. While some of the content we will feature is kid-friendly, the context of the episode is to address and educate older teens and adults to inform them of said content for them to research as consumers in service of their youth. In other words, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, teachers, librarians, etc. There is the possibility of adult language present on the episode as well, rated TV 16 and up. And before we go any further, we want to spend a little bit of time paying our respects to the late, great Joe Sinnott, who passed away today at the age of, I believe it was 93. Let's check that for sure. And this is a picture of him. He started in 1949 as a penciler and inker, and then in 1951 he began working at Timely, which is the company that became Marvel Comics. He is best known perhaps for his work with the great Jack Kirby on Fantastic Four. They were a tandem for much of the primary run of Fantastic Four that Jack did the artwork on. He also continued to do Fantastic Four inking after Jack Kirby with John Buscema and John Byrne. And he also did Thor with Jack Kirby, and he did other projects as well. Again, he passed away this morning around 8:40 at the age of 93. So if you want to send condolences, you can send it to the Sinnott family at 27 Spalding Lane, Saugerties, New York, 12477. And we're going to miss him. So, and John Norris says good evening, as does Ted Davies. Hope you guys are having a good week so far. We're going to go ahead and go to our questions and answers. if I can get the thing to work today. There we go. And our first question of the evening is, we're going to have a lot of questions pertaining to the cancel culture. I got a nice long letter from a friend of mine in Michigan, and she asks a lot of questions. So we're just going to go ahead and go with her for most of this. Her first question is, why do you think there is such a surge in these recent accusations of alleged sexual misconduct and harassment behavior in the past month? Is it all just part of the cancel culture thing going on, or is this something that would have come to light at some point regardless? And that is from Debbie in Michigan. Well, the truth is, it's been well documented, well known that these behaviors have been going on with most of the people that have been called out. And it hasn't been going on just for the last month. It's been going on, probably about a good year and a half, pretty consistently. The most recent may have been Warren Ellis and Cameron Stewart, and again, Scott Alley. That's like the fourth time Scott's been brought up. But we've seen it with Dirk Manning. We've seen it with quite a few people out there. And the truth is, it's been going on for decades. I don't want to really talk poorly of the dead, but there have been many editors of the Golden and Silver Age era, when they were getting older, got a little bit grabby of the women, shall we say. And nobody did much about it at the time. They just said, well, he's old, he's, different era, different mentality type thing. And it doesn't matter, and it didn't matter then. There were women fans, there were women creators who made complaints of it back then, of those individuals, and little was done. So it's not so much that it's part of the so-called cancel culture of now, that's going on with all the other social injustices. It just so happens that right now there's a spotlight being put on it because of the other social injustice spotlights that are going on right now. Our next question. Do you think that women also commit questionable acts and abuse their authority in the comics industry? And if so, how come they are also called out? Well, I can't say about the comics industry. My only personal experience, Debbie, you may remember I had a girlfriend in college back in the 90s who I broke up with. 17 years later, in 2010, she was an editor for a prose fiction, science fiction website. And she kept blocking my submissions. Only I didn't know it was her at first, until she basically sent me this really nasty email after I had been invited by her boss to pitch some more. And I forwarded that to her boss and said, what's the deal here? And then we figured out that she was my ex from 17 years earlier, and that she was just basically screwing with me. So yes, I would say that there are situations where that sort of thing might happen based on a relationship or former relationship. It's a two-way street. Everybody's human. Everybody makes stupid mistakes and does stupid things to hurt one another. Is all I can say about that. As far as it being in the comic industry, I've never heard of it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I know there's plenty of women who talk trash about other women, so I wouldn't be surprised if they talk trash about the men and manipulate the men too. So, yeah, I would not put it past them, but I haven't heard of any real bad stories as far as women affecting men, more so than women going after women and trying to take the women taking other women down a peg or two, more so than the men. Next question. Do you think that creators and other professionals are protected by the system or through their friendships, which allows for these incidents to occur? Well, yeah, definitely. Um, a lot of people just don't want to go through the well, I'm trying to think of the word for this, the protocols that you have to go through to prove all these things are going on the way they're going on. People have spoken out. People have gone to human resources. They've filed complaints. Um, People like Eddie Berganza, who's no longer at DC. Eddie Berganza should have been fired like 10 years before he was. But he had something like 7 or 8 complaints against him for harassment from different women during his time at DC. And I think I know they demoted him at least once. I know they sent him to, get not, I don't want to call it therapy, but, go to sensitivity training. That's what I'm thinking of. Multiple times before they fired him. They gave him every opportunity. And I think that's part of the thing with the system is, even though we know these people do this, we go through these systems and you got to go through these channels. Okay, well, you've gone through your sensitivity training. Now you got to get, and as long as they behave for an extended period, they think, oh, well, it worked. He won't do it anymore, or she won't do it anymore. And then they do it again, or someone else comes up with something else. And I don't know if we have to do a 3 strikes you're out program. I don't know what the answer is to that. I think if anybody gets physically harmed, it should be a 1 strike and you're out. Like Scott Alley bit someone, that's physical harm. So I would have said you're gone. I think there was a few other examples where there were actual physical harm done to a person by an editor, putting hands on inappropriately in a way that made the person feel unsafe or actually cause physical harm. I would not. I would say that would be a 1 strike and you're out situation. As far as the verbal and the writing, I think we need to have more protocol and enforce those protocols properly in that respect. Next question. Again, these are mostly all from Debbie this week. Do you think the revelation of these events involving creator or editor with aspiring talent will change the way interactions are moderated or controlled at conventions or online at website message boards? They already have to some extent over the years. I know that there are places that were popular, websites that certain creators were members of, like Warren Ellis used to be a member of CBR, and Warren was kind of a cad even then. I called him out for plagiarism, quite frankly. He had done a column in his Coming Alone column for CBR where he plagiarized from Peter David and from me and from the late Gary Reed at Caliber Press in a column about building your own brand and marketing yourself. And what he had done was he had cut and pasted thoughts that we had all posted in the old Usenet boards like 5 or 6 years earlier, and he was basically proclaiming them as his own idea, and it wasn't. He could have. All I had to do was say, well, back in the Usenet days, I remember certain people like Peter David and Louis Brightraven talking, and then here's my thoughts off of their thoughts. He didn't do it that way though, and I called him out on it. And I remember getting chewed out for that, not by Warren, but by the then owner Jonah Weiland. How dare you do that? Well, hey, someone's unprofessional, you call them out on it in that respect. But anyway, when he founded the Warren Ellis forums and left CBR, I kind of got the impression he was. I won't say I knew he was going to start doing what he's been accused of with grooming women, but I got the impression he wanted to have complete control over his fan base and have that type of a situation where he could do something like that if no one was giving him any checks and balances. And no one was going to give him checks and balances there. If he owns it, it's his say. So I noticed him, and there's a couple of other people at different boards that had different places, like at Newsarama or at comiccon.com or some of the other places, where they went ahead and left those boards that were more generalized and got their own private boards to do that with. And I think that they did that because there was changes happening, so that sort of thing wasn't going to happen as much. So it's not like we haven't paid any attention to this, but it's like I said, there's a lot of protocols involved, and it's not easy to enforce everything. And what one person sees as a sexual lewd comment or harassment isn't necessarily perceived as that same by others either. So, or they say, well, that person didn't mean it that way. And they didn't. They really didn't mean it that way. But if someone takes it that way, you have to find a middle ground and say, okay, you saw it. That's how you saw it. That's not how I meant it. I'm sorry, but you got to learn how to let it go and not come up 10 years later. Well, he said such and such on the message board 10 years ago and pissed me off, too. So, and that's a lot of what we have with this cancel culture stuff is people are dragging up skeletons of things said and done on message boards or during a podcast or during on their Twitter account or their Facebook accounts. And, that's a little bit, I understand in some cases why it's done, but a lot of it is just petty bullshit. I'm sorry. And I think, it's not that we shouldn't listen to people and what they're saying, but we can't just jump to conclusions and say, I understand what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. You have to do your due diligence and properly examine the circumstances before judging people, instead of allowing the kangaroo court social media to do that. Okay. Mm-hmm. Next question is from Miguel Assar from Chicago. He asks, do you think that a person's career should be canceled by accusations? Why or why not? It's not so much an accusation. I mean, accusation, no. But if there's a formal complaint and there's evidence presented after a proper investigation has been done by the human resources or whatever, and you get all the information that you can before you make that decision, do you need to ruin a person's career? No. But I think it's kind of silly that we had this cancel culture. I mean, okay, Michael Vick went to jail for dog fighting and killing dogs. He got to go back and play in the NFL. Should he have been canceled? Think about that for a moment. Well, that's different. Well, is it? He committed a crime. Living beings were killed. Just because they weren't human, they were still living beings. Does he deserve that right to go play for millions of dollars, play a freaking sport? I don't think he should have been. I know there's a lot of people who probably feel the same way, but he was given that opportunity. So if a person said something stupid, or, that was misinterpreted the wrong way, or they had a bad relationship breakup and the woman comes back and says something out of spite that isn't entirely true, or maybe even if it is true, is that cause to say, okay, we're not going to work with this person anymore? I don't know. I think we need to re-examine that a little bit. I think that we as fans have a right to choose whether or not we want to support a creator, but we vote with our dollars, not by threatening a publisher by saying, well, I'm going to boycott you and not buy any of your books if you keep that person employed. That's excessive, because if you do that, well, you're hurting all these other people who have nothing to do with that decision. So, I mean, unless something is directly affecting you personally, whereas you're the one who was being harassed, or you're the one who was the brunt direct party that was offended, then I could see it, because I've been there and I've done that. But again, I don't sit there and say, okay, well, nobody else should buy Marvel Comics because a couple of editors were, mistreating me, so to speak. When I say mistreating me, I'm not talking about sexually or anything like that. I'm talking about just professionally speaking. They didn't handle the way they should have done things differently. Is basically all I'm saying there. But people do that as well, and they say that it was, something else than it was. So. In that respect, I don't think people should just have their lives canceled by an accusation. But if there's enough evidence presented, that would stand up in a court of law, a real court of law. Not a kangaroo court of the social media. And I think a lot of people who make these allegations and accusations are afraid to go to court because they don't think their argument, their claims will stand up. And having been in that situation myself, like I said, with the ex-girlfriend who was blocking me for work, I've had a couple of cases where I was accused of stuff where I proved that was not the case. I didn't go to court. They didn't take it to court. They took it to public opinion. This was 20 years ago. A lot of people don't like me for that reason, because they remember that situation. And it's like, well, you don't remember the situation. You remember what they said, and you don't like me because of what they said, but this is the truth. And so does that affect my career? Probably it has. Who knows? I can't say, well, because so-and-so did such and such, I'm not getting work. I can't prove it directly, but it probably has. Mm-hmm. Anonymous asks, do you think that the behaviors would be more controlled or even stop if more women ran the business of comics? Nope, don't believe it at all. You got to remember that Jeanette Kahn ran DC all throughout the 70s, 80s, and most of the 90s. I think all the 90s, actually. I think she retired in 2002, stepped down. And so, there was a lot of stuff going on at DC through all that period where women were not treated properly, and there were complaints made. And so, when she's the top person, she could put her foot down and make heads roll if she really had wanted to, if she really believed that was what was going on at the time. And we all know that it did with certain people. And there were certain people that were no longer actively on the roster editorially, but they were like persona emeritus, I guess you could say, because they were very popular editors or very popular people for DC in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and they had basically retired from working, but they were still active ambassadors, I guess you could say, of the company. That, like I said, they were of that era that were kind of grabby, and people complained, and they were not removed. They were not. They weren't chastised. They were not punished, to that I am aware of, and that would have been her call, I believe. I could be mistaken, but based on what her position was at the time as president of the company, I would presume that she would have had the say so on that. I know Diana Schutz tried to get rid of Scott Alley at Dark Horse and was basically blown off by other people that were above her. And in fact, Scott Alley got promoted above her before she left the company. And I don't understand why, because he was, I don't know. But it is what it is. So, I mean, it's not that our some of our women or our top women in the companies haven't tried. It's just, it's going to take more than just putting women in charge to fix the system. Next question. Another one from Anonymous. Do you think fans have a right to judge and attack creators who have been alleged to have committed these acts? Why or why not? You have the right to take the facts that are presented to you and make a judgment to choose whether or not you want to support their work anymore. But do you have a right to, in turn, attack them and harass them and go to other publishers and say, don't give this person any more work, or I'm not going to buy your product or any of your products or whatever? I think that's an overstep, an overreach. Again, we have the right to vote with our dollars, but you can easily just not buy stuff that person or persons are associated with directly without hurting the rest of the people that are involved that have nothing to do with it. And I know that may seem a little bit hypocritical coming from me because I don't buy Marvel product because of certain editors. And you might think that I'm doing it out of spite in that respect and not giving the other people a chance. And I get that. The truth is, I do look at the Marvel books. I just don't see anything that I really want to read because, and you know, I'm not going to say my view isn't colored by my experience with those people that made me negative, but it is what it is. But you know, if I ever see something that I actually want, I'll let you guys know. You know. So if you have any other questions, you can email them to quoththeravenlbr72@gmail.com. Subject, Quoth the Raven questions. Please indicate whether or not you want your name and locale read on air. And we'll continue a little bit more with the topic at hand. Those are the questions I was asked directly, but I've also been asked today while I was doing things and didn't have time to actually type them all in. You know, somebody mentioned again, Scott Alley had been brought up again, and now Mike Mignola has finally removed Scott from the Mignolaverse. I'm going to be honest, part of the reason why I quit reading the Mignolaverse was because he was with Scott, and Scott was writing some of the stories, and it was getting, I just, knowing Scott's reputation and some of the things that have been reported about him, it was unsavory for me. Mm-hmm. And I know that did color some of my decision when I decided to cut the Mignolaverse last year. I didn't publicly say that because I didn't want people to get the wrong impression, I guess, because I mean, I guess I just didn't want people to blow up at me over it at the time. But there's a lot of things with Scott. I never liked, didn't trust him in that respect, partly due to the accusations and allegations that had been levied against him multiple times. by female creators, and even a couple of male creators have even stepped forward and mentioned witnessing his behavior. I never did understand why it took so long, but again, I believe he probably went through protocol and probably went through some sensitivity training and other things like, but I definitely would. I think when he left editorial to go freelance writer, probably, and I think he did that in 17 or 18. I think that's when Dark Horse kind of had their fill of him editorially. And he stepped down on his own accord, but I think they were going to remove him anyway, so to speak. Again, I've already talked about Warren. I told you, he's done other things that are unsavory to me. That it's not a surprise if he did technically groom anybody. But I think people need to understand that it is a two-way street as well, and that there are women aspiring talent and women cosplayers and women fans who behave themselves inappropriately towards the guys. And I don't know what we do about that, because if we call them out on that, now what? When does it stop being just fun and it crosses the line into harassment, even if it's just passive aggressive harassment, or unintentional harassment? Let's put it that way. When I say passive aggressive harassment, I mean if I'm at a table as an editor and I'm reviewing portfolios and someone of the female persuasion comes in a very, let's say they're dressed in a cosplay outfit that has a very low cut top, and she leans forward and basically just gives me an eyeful of cleavage, and she knows she's doing it, and she's just there's no reason for her to bend over to lean forward to shake my hand or anything necessarily. I can shake her hand while she's standing straight up, but she does that, and it is a sexual overture. It's not an invite to have an intercourse or anything like that, but it is a subliminal context of invitation, whether you meant it or not. And we men have to understand that either they're teasing you and let it go, or they're too oblivious to know what they're doing, I guess. But it gets frustrating. I've been there a lot of times, and so much so that my mother was with us, God rest her soul. She was disabled, and I usually took her with me to conventions in her mid 2000s, because I couldn't really leave her at home for multiple days if I was going to multiple day shows. And she would man the table, and whenever a woman acted inappropriately, she would speak up on my behalf, so I wouldn't have to be a jerk and say something off color or say something that might be perceived wrongly. She would say it instead, and I don't know. I mean, yes, they were still taken aback by the remark, and maybe someone would say something later that, hey, why'd she say that? But it was more effective coming from her than it would have been from me, I think, in that respect. And in that respect, I wish more women in the industry, when they see someone, female, doing things that are questionable, I wish the women would pull them aside and give them a talking to. Because if we men try to do it, then we're being aggressive or sexist or whatever. We're not doing it right, basically. And then if we don't say anything or do anything otherwise, then it's our fault too. And so that's why a lot of men don't. They just don't know what to do. So they don't do anything. And we need to change that. We've got to figure out what can be said. What is our place on that? What can we say? What can we do? If a cosplayer or a female is leaning up against um, the back issue boxes and steps up on her tippy toes and puts the girls on top of the back issue boxes and asks for assistance, can we call security to remove her or not? For an example, because I've seen that more than once. If a woman is sitting in her chair and her jeans have ridden down and her ass crack is showing out the back of the chair, am I wrong to grab the hoodie from the table next to her, that's her hoodie, and put it over the back of the chair so that nobody will take photos of her derriere from behind without her knowing about it? Is that okay? Or am I going to get bitched at? Because I did that for a young lady. And she was very embarrassed when I told her why I did it. But, and I didn't say it loud or anything. I whispered it to her, let her know quietly. But, I don't know how many guys had walked past her from behind and took that photo. I just knew that, don't want that being shown, so I didn't. I did what I did. I thought I was doing the right thing by that person at the time, and they thanked me afterwards. When they realized why I did it. But these are the things that people don't seem to understand, that when we are properly communicating with each other, these things don't normally happen. And a lot of these situations where people are saying they've got these internet connections long distance, what's written on a screen can be interpreted different ways, I think, or in print can be interpreted different ways. I think other aspects come into it and play that we don't really see the full context of what people meant when they said certain things. I know I used to get in fights at comic book resources about certain things, way someone would phrase something and I would take it very literally and they'd say, that's not what he meant. For example, someone would say, isn't Jim Lee the best Batman artist ever? Well, that's a leading question that implies I'm supposed to agree with you. I don't. So we got a problem. Well, that's not what I meant. I meant to say that he's my favorite Batman artist of all time. What's yours? Well, then say that. I knew that's what he meant, but he didn't say it right. And I was trying to get that across to them and saying, well, you're just being a jerk. Well, no, I'm not. Because it is a leading question that implies that the person that you're asking that question to is supposed to agree with you, And when they argue with you, if you say anybody else besides Jim Lee is the best Batman artist ever, then yeah, they're and they do it rudely. So there you go. But these are, and that's just, I always have a cutout. I don't know. Uh, okay, I'm back, I hope. Uh, and can you see me? Can you hear me okay? Hello? Okay. Yeah, I had to like leave the room and go back in, I guess. I don't know what happened. Like I think it was a StreamYard um, situation there. Apologies. Um, yeah, I disappeared on the screen. I don't know what happened there. It just cut out the whole screen, everything. They told me I wasn't connected to the internet, and I'm looking at my modem, and I'm looking at what are you talking about? So I think it was a StreamYard thing there. So hopefully that won't happen again during this episode. Um, but we're going to go ahead and. Does anybody else have anything to say about what we were discussing here with the cancel culture? I see that something is wrong here. Um, this is weird. Uh, and can you see me? Can you hear me okay? Okay. I didn't realize there was that much of a delay between um, YouTube and the StreamYard feed because there is quite a little bit of a delay there. Okay, so now I know what's going on there. Um, well, I kind of don't really want to get too much on it right now. Um, Again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't listen to anybody who has a complaint. Certainly, listen to what's being said. Just do your due diligence. Don't just jump to conclusions. Um, and if someone can prove their innocence, then just let it go. And even if something did happen and it was a long time ago, depending on what it is, I mean, obviously, if someone was physically harmed in some way, if they were raped or they were molested in some way, no, that's not okay, and then we need to remove that person. But if it was something like, I don't know, person claiming that they were being stalked when they weren't, um, I mean, John knows. There was a former CBR she still is a moderator at CBR. She was my former website designer, and she flaked out, and I had to go file. I had to go get a private investigator, find her, and do a whole bunch of other stuff. And she like claimed I was stalking. No, I'm trying to get my website back. Big difference. But anyway, that was a long time ago, though. But someone could still pick that up and say something about it. So I think that's part of the big problem with the cancel culture thing is that we just keep dragging everybody else's skeletons out of the closet, and I don't really see the point of that. If it's something recent or even you know really really serious, I mean, it'd be different. Like I mean, you know, like Gerard Jones's child pornography or something. That's different, but a lot of it is just stuff that needs to be, I don't want to say put to bed, but taken in proper context, I guess is what I would say. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next topic. And I'm going to see if I can find it to show you guys. There we go. Let's see if we can get that shared with you all. There we go. And I got two people. Okay. Let's go ahead and talk about this here. This is from Games Radar, and Marvel's Tom Brevoort. Marvel's one of the top. Tom Brevoort's one of Marvel's top editors. He's created this supposed online comics editor role-playing game where you play as though you're going to be in charge of DC, Marvel, or Image. I think it's funny that that he's doing it in a way because it's like fantasy football for comics. And he's doing it on his personal blog, and he's only letting people. He picked up a bunch of different people, 5 players, and they'll act as group editors. 3 at Marvel, 1 at DC, and 1 at Image Comic. I don't know why Marvel gets 3 and the other 2 only get 1, but whatever. With the goal of successfully managing their titles commercially and critically. Okay, whatever. The goal of all the players over the course of the next 10 weeks is to increase your sales, put out crowd-pleasing, well-produced comic books, meet your financial obligations to your respective companies, and get the books out on time. As an editor, you can try anything you can think of, more or less, provided that such actions get approved by the brain trusts of your respective organizations. Played by me. In other words, what I look at this as him doing is we can't think of anything to do, so we're going to let you guys think of what to do, and if we like your ideas, we'll approve them and then do them ourselves. And you don't get paid for it. That's what I get out of that. And maybe I'm not. I don't know. I just thought that was like, really. I mean, that bad? Are we? Might as well just fire the editors you got and then hire some people. Then might as well. But I mean, I understand a lot of people do these kind of fantasy gaming, fantasy quarterbacking of the comic book industry, and they say, well, if I was running Marvel, I'd hire so and so and whatnot and everything. And the thing is, like he says, you kind of brain trust that you got to go through, and what you think you want to do might not get approved. So you always got to have like multiples. I keep telling people, you got to have 10 writers and 10 artists for each book, and you can't repeat anybody. That's how you really be prepared as an editor. And it's not easy to do because you got to remember, if you're doing it right, you're not hiring talent that's already gainfully employed at your competitors either. But it is what it is. I just thought that was an amusing thing that they came up with. But he named the people that he's going to play with and everything, and that's fine, But apparently he's done this 2 previous times as well. So you know, and Jim Lee did something as well when he was running Wildstorm. So, it's not like they haven't done this before. It's just amusing to me, is all. Let's see what else there is in the comics news I thought you guys might want to know about. We talked about the Eisner Awards recently, and unfortunately, the voting website was closed abruptly due to an anomaly, and an investigation is now underway. That was on a week ago, actually. Um, they didn't really say much about it, so we really don't know what happened. Um, Apparently, it's several returning voters from previous years that had logged on to the site had found portions of their personal information changed to unknown third parties. Whether their voting record was altered, they don't know. But personal information is pretty interesting that they changed that stuff going on. So um, whether or not they'll do it, how they're going to do it later on hasn't been announced to my knowledge. I haven't seen an update on that. But hopefully they'll have it resolved and we'll be able to do our voting for it for those of us who are qualified to do so. um, I can't remember if the Eisners are fan award or industry only. I can't remember off the top of my head for some reason. Probably just too tired to think about it tonight. Um, so there's a few other things I've noticed as well. Let's see if we can find it. Um, nope. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and remove that. Stop that screen then. And so let me see here. Sorry, folks. I'm just doing the best I can here with this. There we go. This is also from the Beat at that's Heidi McDonald's website, the Beat of Comics Culture, and let's talk about some of the more interesting things again. Former Batgirl writer Margaret Scott comes forward about being excluded at DC. In this article, she's talking about how she was not invited to the Bat Family Summit when she was writing Batgirl. Um, and she just started writing the gig, and they wouldn't let her come in basically, and there was another summit that she wasn't invited to. Um, and basically that she was basically dictated to how to do her job. And, she's making it sound like it's because of sexism. Well, I want to remind you all that back when they did the DC 52 and relaunched the 52, they had about 8 or 9 different writers who walked out on DC for this very same kind of thing, where they would either not be invited to the summit meetings, or they would agree to what was being told to them. Okay, yeah, we agree with your storyline, and then halfway through the storyline, oh, by the way, you're changing everything that you're going to do, because the people in charge, whether it was the DO, Johns, Lee, whoever, had a better idea while you were doing what you were going to do anyway. So either you do it our way or you're gone. That's why George Perez left Superman. That's why the guy who created iZombie left the book he was on. I think he was writing Green Lantern at the time. Quite a few people left for that very reason. So I think this is more of that tendency of just not having respect for the freelancers in general, rather than necessarily a sexism thing. I'm not saying that it didn't play some in there. It probably did some. But I don't think it was a full-blown, situation. I just think because she was new and didn't have enough clout, that they just didn't give a damn more than it was about her gender. I could be wrong, but that based on what I've seen of other people and how they've even treated veterans, I would say it was more likely that. Another important thing that was mentioned, and I can get this thing to go. Here we go. The Barnes & Noble buyer representative for graphic novels, who is James Killen. He'd been there for over 20 years. He just got laid off from the Barnes & Noble company. And the layoffs were reported at the Wall Street Journal. And he'll be gone at the end of the summer. Well, not the end of the summer, August 1st. Now, it says here that his tenure at Barnes & Noble, which lasted 40 years, saw the graphic novel section expand from increased shelving to more elaborate sections and so on. Yes, he's very certainly one of the most important people. I don't think people realize how important his position was and the stuff that he contributed to the industry in that respect. But 40 years in the business, at a single company is like retirement time. I mean, I don't mean to sound like a jerk or anything, but is he really furloughed, or is it just time for him to retire from having a good long career at that company and leading into his next stage of his life? I don't know. I mean, again, he was a very influential person rather, in terms of what was being bought and what was being marketed through Barnes & Noble. He wasn't the only buyer there for Barnes & Noble, though, for that division. I can tell you that much. He's just one of the more well-known ones, and probably the head one with his experience. But again, 40 years. When do you retire someone and let someone else take the reins? I don't know. I think that's probably what the situation is with that. Because Barnes & Noble, and it's not just them letting people off work and because of COVID-19 and their stores aren't open and stuff like that. It's also they've been under financial stress for a long time, and they need to cut the fat, so to speak. And that means getting, while it should mean getting cutting down the salaries of the big people at the very top of the chain, it still should also mean letting go of people who have been there and retiring them out. It's kind of like a person with tenure at a college. How long do you let them keep teaching until the next generation has a turn, type thing? So I think that's kind of an issue there. But I wish James all the best, no matter what happens. And I hope that he's given a good, if he is, certainly leaving in August 1st for certain, I hope he's given a good severance pay and given everything he deserves. If he's got 40 years in, he should automatically have a good pension plan and everything with them. So it should be okay. And that's all of our news for this week. So then that takes us to our next thing, which is our reviews. Let's start with Arrow Girl. The Adventures of Arrow Girl, Volume 1. The publisher's Action Lab Comics. It is trade paperback $14.99. It collects issues 1 through 4 of the original series. It was published by Action Lab Comics. The writer is Dwayne Feenstra. The artist is Axel Aeneas. The ISBN number is 9781-63 229-112-7. The colors are Juan Pablo Reading for like the first 2 issues, I think, and Jaime Hernandez for the other 2. The genre is superhero in all ages. What it's about. Jacqueline McKenzie, a.k.a. Arrow Girl, is the daughter of the Swarm Protector of Fox Bay, the hero known as Battlejack. She has secretly begun her training as her father's sidekick when her father is killed by the evil Dr. Chimera, and the Battle Spirit, which is the source of his powers, are lost to her, falling into severe depression and guilt. She is going to retire the Arrow Girl identity when a gorilla that the Battle Spirit transferred itself to befriends her, and they team up to pursue Chimera and bring him to justice. It's recommended for ages 9 and up, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Would have given it 4, even 4.5 stars, but there's a major problem with the book, and it might make you decide you might not want it. When they did the trade paperback, they didn't collect it correctly. It's almost like they took copies of the 4 issues and saddle stitched them and stuck them together and put a cover on them. It's not what they did, but it looks like that because all the ads, front and back covers, the same ads over and over and over throughout the book. And it breaks up the stories and chapters and stuff. And it's just like, if this was properly done, all that stuff would be removed. So that kind of turned me off of the book a little bit. And the only reason I had gotten it was because I had gotten the first issue in singles, and I could never find the rest of the series. So that's why I gotten it. But it was just a little bit off-putting there. So that's why I gave it a 3 out of 5. Let's take a look quickly at the artwork. This is first few pages here. And she's fighting the circus of crime with the bearded lady and another guy, and the other guy had gone back into the place that they were robbing, and she goes after the bearded lady in these scenes. I do like the book. I I wish it gotten a little more notice when it first came out. It feels like it's been out for a long time. I don't know how long it's been, but I did enjoy it for what it is. I just wish it didn't have all the advertising in it. Our next book. Oh, actually, we got one more here. More of the battle between her and the bearded lady. I forgot. She got called by her mom in the middle of the fight. She's talking to her mom on the cell phone while she's fighting the enemy. Anyway, our next book is Gilbert, the Little Mermaid, Volume 1, $9.99. Publisher's paper cuts. Writer and artist is Art Baltazar. The genre is action adventure comedy. It's all ages. ISBN number 978-1-5458-0145-1. It was released June 20th. It says a second printing from December 2018. I don't know if that means that the book is older or if it was the first printing was December 2018 or what. But my copy is a second printing. And what it's about is Gilbert is the son of King Nauticus of the Guild Sea People. Think like Abe Sapien in the Hellboy movies and comics. They just happen to have tails, as you can kind of see there with the thing there. But anyway, he finds a message in a bottle in the ocean, brings it home to his parents. But before they can decipher it, Gilbert sees a mysterious mermaid named Amphibian, which is the one to the left of him in the center there, and right below left there, who leads him on an adventure into the unknown parts of the ocean. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to Gilly and his friends, which is Anne and the little turtle there, an alien invasion is about to begin. It's super kid-friendly, so much so that I'm not sure adults will really get into it that much unless you have kids to share it with. Or you like that kind of an art style, which is cool if you do. I mean, I tried it. I like it okay, but it's not my favorite thing in the world. But I have no complaints about it. Anyway, I would have liked to have seen how the story would be different if it was told for teenagers as opposed to all ages, because there's some things that are just a little bit too simplistic for me, but that's just the adult me going, there should be more complexity to the story than there, and the thing is, being all ages, it doesn't necessarily need it, so it's fine as it is. I gave it 3.5 stars. Let's go ahead and take a look at the artwork. I think it's very bright and colorful and has good depth perception to the artwork. Our next book is The Osiris Path, $3.99. Behemoth Comics is the publisher. The writers are Christian Moran, Corey Coleman, and Brockton McKinney. The artists are Justin Greenwood for the breakdowns and Walt Barna for finished art. The letter is DAM or DAM. The cover is by Justin Greenwood with Brad Simpson. The genre is science fiction. What it's about is an archaeologist is emergency shipped to the dark side of the moon, where he discovers there's a military base that's been there since before Aldrin and Armstrong set foot on the moon, completely run by black ops money from the government. He has been called upon to check a site that they found on the moon, one that looks like an Egyptian temple to Osiris. He's about to be told about their next step in their mission when they are attacked by another group of humans and they have to flee. But they soon leave the moon and are on their way to Mars, the next step in the Osiris path. I recommended for ages 16 and up, and I gave it 4.5 stars. The there's a lot of really cool stuff, and for those of you who might have seen the recent Brad Pitt movie Ad Astra, it kind of feels a lot like that in a way. Just not so much psychologically. It's not as much of a psychological drama as Ad Astra is. There's more direct action, but at the same time, it's got a lot of similar premise to it. Take a quick look at the art here. This is where they put the archaeologist in his own little lander. And he's like, I don't know how to pilot this. He goes, that's all right. We're piloting you down automatic, by remote control. He's like, uh-oh, what have I got myself into? And then this is him falling to his knees and looking around because he didn't expect to find this, which is the temple to Osiris. Art Baltazar. John and Nora says, I wonder if Art Baltazar has ever done any teen-oriented stories. His art is very cute. I don't know. I think he's more of an all-ages type of guy. I know he did Hellboy Jr. I know he did some Teen Titans stuff, but it was like really kid Teen Titans. I'm just not. I can't think of anything that would really be more adult or teenager even for his stuff off the top of my head. Let's go on to the next book. Another cool book for all ages. This is Primer. It's an original graphic novel for $9.99. The publisher is DC Kids. The writers are Jennifer Murrow and Thomas Krajewski. Hope I didn't slaughter that too much. The artist is Gretel Lusky. The color is by Wes Abbott. The genre is superhero. The ISBN number is 978-1-4012-9657-5. What it's about. 13-year-old Ashley Rayburn is an upbeat girl whose father is in prison. She has bounced around from home to home in the foster system, but she has finally found a home where things are working out. Her foster dad is an artist like her, and her foster mom is a scientist. She comes across a set of what she thinks are a set of spray paints intended as a birthday present, but they are really a special set of chemicals that, when worn on the skin, endow the wearer with superpowers. Now a rogue agent of the government wants the paints for himself, and Ashley must try to protect her new family. And I gave it 5 stars. I mentioned this book in a previous episode. John says he did Tiny Titans. I used to review that title. There you go. Now, I don't remember exactly what episode it was, but I reviewed it when it was just being solicited, and I told people you should check it out. Getting the book, all I had seen was 3 or 4 pages, and I was really interested. But getting the book and having the chance to really read it, I was really impressed with it. Very fun read, and yet has enough tension in it for different things going on with the characters. Ashley thinks that her foster mom doesn't really like her, when in reality, her mom's worrying about the fact that she stole the chemicals from the lab and what to do with them, because she doesn't want them to get in the wrong hands. So there was like other things going on with that, and I enjoyed that book tremendously. And if you can find it, I highly recommend it. Again, that's called Primer. It came out about 2 weeks ago. And let's see, I'll show you the artwork again. Maybe you'll remember that I showed this to you. She put fire, strength, and invulnerability together. You only wear 3 of the paints at a time. Um, and you might say, well, why didn't she take flight when she's trying to stop a plane? Why did she take fire and strength and the other? The main reason that she didn't put the flight one was because the flight canister was empty at the time in the story. Yeah, and I don't know what the chemical composition of these paints are supposed to be. I think there's some sort of living um, nanotechnology or something, because they replenish themselves after you've used them. So it's not like if you use up the paint, you can't have that power anymore. It replenishes itself in the can somehow. So I'm presuming it's some sort of living nanotech of some sort. But they don't really get into that in the story, and hopefully they'll do something more, because at the end of the story, they do have a little bit of a not so much a cliffhanger, but enough of an open-ended stuff that you can see there's more story to come if DC gets enough sales and wants to pursue it. Next story. Something is Killing the Children, Volume 1, $14.99. The publisher is Boom Studios, writers James Tynion IV, artist is Werther Deladera. The color is Miguel Muerto. It was released June 10th this year. Genre is horror. ISBN number 978-1-68415-558-3. And what it's about. In the small park of Archer's Peak, Wisconsin, dozens of children have gone missing. One teenager has come back but isn't telling the police everything he saw when a mysterious blonde-haired woman shows up from out of town and tells the young man that she needs to know the whole truth. This woman, named Erica Slaughter, is basically a Buffy the Vampire Slayer type monster hunter who travels the country taking out monsters. Now she has to find the monsters killing the children of this town without raising suspicion within the townspeople. Can she do this without normal society getting in the way? Ages 16 and up, I give it 4 stars. And when I say it's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, for those of you who've watched Buffy, if you remember a certain episode called Doppelgangland, where Cordelia wishes that Buffy had never come to Sunnydale, and so she hadn't, and all the vampires had taken over Sunnydale, and Giles is trying to get the Slayer, and then Buffy comes and she's like this rough and tumble chick with the split lip and the really dark mascara around her. Well, take a look at this. Dark mascara around the eyes. She just got through beating up and killing a monster for a little girl who apparently is either just had a really bad bruise and needs the eye thing there, or maybe she's lost her eye. They don't really say in the story. But there you go. The hair is almost exactly what Buffy had in that episode. Here's the monster she's fighting on the left, and that kid, the guy she's talking to, is the little kid that survived the attack. I enjoy the book, but like I said, it's kind of like it's so Buffy it's ridiculous, but uh, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I just wish it was a little more not obvious that that's what they're doing with it. So, oh well, no big deal. But yeah, it's enjoyable for what it is. Our next book is Steam, original graphic novel, $14.99. Publisher is Dark Horse. The writer is Drew Ford. The artist is Dwayne Leslie. The colors are Ava De La Cruz. The genre is steampunk science fiction. This was released on June 9th, 2020, and the ISBN number is 978 1 506 71 726 5. What it's about is a young boy named Arlo escapes his abusive guardians on Earth through an intergalactic portal that transports him to the steam powered world of Pother. There he learns of his true family's legacy and discovers his own self worth while trying to save both worlds. It's recommended for ages 12 and up, and it's a 4-star book. Let's see here. There we go. Here's some of the artwork. He's actually falling through the portal at this point, and going to leave our Earth into Pother. And then that's where he, goes through the portal, and he sees them, and they go grab him before he gets seen by the wrong people in that world. And what's going on is his father, his biological father, has been missing since he was a little kid because he was transported to Pother and is trying to save that planet from being having all their resources used up. And unfortunately, it's a corporate company from our side that's usurping all their resources. And so the adventure's about him trying to get a way to get his father away from the evil corporation and other stuff going on there. And of course, he ends up being a little bit more tied into the planet. They don't exactly say how yet. They kind of leave that off at the very end for the next part of the storyline, next trade whenever they get around to doing it. So it's well done. All the characters are relatively enjoyable for what they are. I don't think there's any characters that are unlikable or that I didn't like. Has good moments and pacing. The art was good again. This art kind of tells you a little bit. Let me see if I can quickly grab that book. Well, I don't know exactly where I placed it at the moment, so I can't show you additional artwork right now, but maybe next week we'll get to that. Let's go on ahead and go to our next one. Here's a little bit more of the artwork here. That's Arlo running around with the guy, chasing or following, rather, trying to get away from the bad guys. They go through some pneumatics tubes through there and get away from the church, evil church people. All right. Our next book is John Carpenter presents Storm Kids Hyperbreed number 1 of 5, $3.99. Misspelled Productions there, typed up wrong there. But the publisher is Stone King Productions. The writer is Louise Simonson. The penciler is Guy Dorian Sr. Inker is Sal Buscema. Colors are by Ross Campbell. Letters are by Janice Chiang. The cover that you see here is by Walt Simonson and Michelle Madsen. Genre is science fiction. And what it's about is a trio of genetically created humanoids, a bear-wolfish hybrid, Camo, who's a reptilian whose skin altered colors and patterns, and I presume would be camouflaged. and Fext, a fox minx hybrid, are sent into the deep reaches of space with a certain assignment by the corporation they serve, only to have their ship attacked by pirates. Now they must fight for their very lives. Recommended for ages 13 up. I gave it a 3 out of 5. Entertaining enough book for what it is. The thing, though, is we've kind of seen this story before, and I don't have anything bad to say about it. I mean, Louise Simon's certainly a competent writer. I enjoy her work. So, I mean, that was the main reason I got this, because I hadn't ordered it. But my comic shop owner, he goes, "Well, you sometimes buy this type of this company's books," and I thought maybe try this one. I said, "Okay." Since it was Louise, I said, "Okay, I'll give it a shot." And I wasn't disappointed by it at all. But a 3 out of 5 is really just an average comic. And so let's go ahead and take a look at the artwork if we got. There we go. I think we can pretty much tell which characters are who. Camo kind of looks like Nightcrawler in a way. He's got the 2-pronged toes for the feet like Nightcrawler, and he's got 4 fingers instead of 2 fingers up top for the hands. But still, I mean, it's very much a lizard meets Nightcrawler type character. That's Nightcrawler with the X-Men, mind you. And the bear character certainly looks like Hank McCoy the Beast, just with brown fur instead of blue. So it's kind of weird, but it's interesting. The only thing I kind of questioned about the storyline was how can the 3 of them run that whole ship by themselves? But oh well. I'm kind of nitpicking there. So our next book is You Brought Me the Ocean, original graphic novel, $16.99. The publisher is DC Comics. The writer is Alex Sanchez. The artist is Julie Moreau. The genre is teen romance superhero. The ISBN number is 978-1-4012-9091 or 9081 rather -8. Released on June 10th. And what it's about is, simply put, it's the story of Aqualad's coming out as a gay teenager and learning about his origins and powers at the same time. This is a very LGBTQ-centric book, but the characters are very well rounded, and the story is not so much about the character's sexuality as other facets of the personalities and interests and whatnot. So even though the character is exploring his sexuality and realizing he's gay and coming out as gay, it doesn't overwhelm the story. It's just part of what the story is, unlike another title that we'll review a little bit later here. It's intended for 16 and up, and I gave it 4.5 stars. And part of the reason I gave it 4.5 again is even though it is LGBTQ, and if you're not, if you're anti that for whatever reason, that's your prerogative. You don't have to buy the book or anything, but you also don't need to trash talk it either. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no really graphic anything in it or anything like that. Really easily could have been. Pardon me. Like I said, getting a little bit tired today. Long week. But we'll go ahead and take a look at their art. And this is where, Aqualad, but I can't remember his actual name. Pardon me. But anyway, that's the black character. They're out in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. And he's out with the guy that he's interested in, who's a swimmer, Kevin, I believe. remember the name correctly. And they're going hiking out in the desert as part of a thing, just get to know each other and stuff like that. But you know, he's basically coming. He's already come out to the other guy. They both know they're both gay. Ow, sorry, got a paper kind of finger here. Where was I? Oh yeah, they're talking about the fact that the black guy's best friend, who's a female, who's his next door neighbor, has a crush on him. Has always kind of sort of figured they were a couple, but he's never been thinking her that way, and she doesn't realize it. And you're talking about he's got to tell her the truth about everything. So it's kind of interesting there in that part there. And when he does reveal all of himself to his best friend, who's female, he reveals his stuff to his mom. His mom gives him more information about him, and it gets interesting. We have Warm Blood is our next book, Volume 1, $10.99. Publishers Bunyo Books. The writer is Josh Tierney. There's over 30 artists who work on this book. It's just not enough. I haven't got enough space to list them all. I guess the genre is mystery. It's kind of a weird book story. ISBN number 978-1-7331-687-0-0. Released June 24th, 2020. So it came out yesterday, I believe. It might have been last week, but either last week or this week. And what it's about, Penny, who's the one that's got the bleeding nose on the cover, is a quiet girl starting her first year of high school. All of her former friends who live by her go to a different school. They go to a prep school or something, private school. She's going to a certain school that has video game teach classes or whatever. And she is becoming a video game designer, but for now she has to learn to navigate the perils of high school. Only this is no ordinary school she's going to. There are bizarre murders, crazy classmates, and much, much more to deal with. Now, I gave it 2.5 stars. And it's for ages 14 and up. And part of the reason why is because there's just so many artists and so many different styles that I just could not get into the narrative. That's what it starts with. And 6 pages in, completely different art style. On the right, then you can see a different art style from one page to the next. And then you flip the page and it's another art style that are completely different, and it really kind of it's kind of off-putting a little bit. The story itself isn't bad, but unlike the Aqualad story, you brought me the ocean. Even though you see the murdered bodies and stuff, you don't really have any clue what's going on with the murders. You don't know you have maybe there's a kid in here that says he's the one who killed him. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. There's really the mystery isn't even close to having any clues, let alone being solved. And Penny has a sort of a girlfriend that's interested in her, and she's really not that interested in her in that way. She wants a boyfriend, and of course, the nosebleed thing, that all throughout the thing, she keeps having these nosebleeds, no explanation. For all I know, she's the one who's killing all these things, and she's doing it all in her head. That's the thing of it. And so I just really couldn't couldn't get into it that much. I probably will not get another edition of this, but we'll see. Depends. I don't know. I think if he does another one with 30 or 40 artists on the book, probably not. Let's see what else we have, if anything. Nope, that was it. That is our reviews for this week. Okay. Well, we've gone ahead and given us an hour and a half. I hope I've entertained you this week. This has been kind of a long week. I got to get this finger taped up. I had a paper cut right on the very tip of the middle finger of the right hand, and I don't know how. I know how I did it. There's a little notepad that has one sheet of paper loose, and I was trying to take some dust off with my hand. I just happened to graze the papers at the right angle. But anyway, we will go ahead and say once again that our show was in accordance with the copy regulations and intended for 16 and up. Rated TV 16 and up. If you want to reach me, you can reach me on Facebook at lewis.brightraven, at deviantart.com/brightraven, on YouTube at Quoth Raven Lewis Brightraven. If you want to email me at quoththeravenlbr72@gmail.com, or if you can't get me at the Gmail address, you should be able to, but if you can't for some reason, you can try lewisbrightraven@yahoo.com. Podcast is normally on Thursdays from 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We might have another episode of this week on Saturday. I don't know yet because I didn't get everything read. I'm still behind quite a bit. So I might do a second one this week. We'll have to wait and see. Okay? But if I do, it'll be just a review session. So until then, have a pleasant week, and we will see you next time. Don't know what happened to the music, folks, but we'll see you next week. Have a good one.